Will others get involved? Right now it's Israel versus Hamas, but there are ominous signs from elsewhere in the region. With no end in sight, the war on Gaza. Can a prolonged battle with an increasing number of victims spill into neighbouring countries? This is Inside Story. Welcome to the show. I'm David Foster. A week and a half since Israel started its campaign in Gaza, and there's talk of conflict spilling into other parts of the region. On Monday, Israel's Defense Minister Ehud Barak said he was keeping a watchful eye on the country's northern border. It appears that Israel is becoming concerned that Hezbollah might attack from Lebanon in support of Gaza. Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah has condemned the Gaza incursion, but hasn't suggested going to war with Israel. And despite increased border patrols by the United Nations Force in Lebanon, Lebanese ministers believe an attack by Hezbollah is unlikely at this stage. A military move by the group would be the first physical support Gaza has received since the conflict began. Arab nations have generally condemned the attacks, but have come to no agreement on how to stop Israel's action. Well, Gaza does have a few allies. Libya floated a draft agreement at the UN when Arab foreign ministers met at the weekend. Iran has offered medical help in the form of a field hospital on the Egyptian border. And the Turkish Prime Minister has been travelling through the region trying to consolidate Arab support before approaching Israel. So far, though, these efforts have failed. A lot of criticism has been laid at Egypt's door. Some Arab nations believe the country has allied itself with Israel by blaming Hamas for firing the rockets. And even the Palestinian president himself, while condemning the attacks, has said Hamas brought Israel's actions on Gaza. Joining us now from Beirut, Timur Goksel, a former senior advisor of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. In Washington, D.C., Mounzer Sleiman, the director of the Center for American and Arab Studies, and in Dallas in the United States, Robert Jordan, who was U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia from 2001 to 2003. Gentlemen, thanks very much indeed. Mr. Ambassador, Robert Jordan, can I start with you first of all? You know the way the wheels turn. Is there any kind of united diplomatic plan coming together?
Not yet. I think we're going to see events on the ground unfold for a while before there's any united diplomatic effort. I think the thought among people in the region likely is that Hamas needs to be weakened substantially, that they are to a great degree a proxy of Iran, and that in many ways the Sunni Arab neighbors have more in common with Israel on this issue than not. And so there may well be an opportunity for diplomacy once Hamas is weakened from a military standpoint, such that a diplomatic effort would be successful. It doesn't seem very likely to be successful at this moment.
Let me just ask you to sort of go into detail on one of the points you just made, saying that Hamas is an Iranian proxy. Other than the fact that they have a common enemy in Israel, in what way are they united?
Well, it's the old story of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So it's largely the common threat, but I think it's also a notion that this common threat is actually quite profound, that it could change the entire balance of power in the region. And so if you're looking at a profound change in the balance of power, that's something that could well unite these rather strange bedfellows, as I would put it.
Okay, Mounzer Sleiman, you've heard it said that what's happening is perhaps in the interests of countries such as Egypt, Saudi Arabia, perhaps Jordan. Is that for the same reasons, or do they all come at this from a different perspective?
It's unfortunate that we are witnessing a carbon copy of what happened during the 2006 Israeli war in Lebanon. The same camp of the government that aligned with the United States, including the Palestinian Authority, with Israel, they're trying to reshape the Middle East. And of course, this campaign is being perceived as, being alluded as Hezbollah or Hamas are proxy of either Iran or Syria. But they're forgetting that the root cause of this issue has nothing to do with any country in the region try to play an important role or being a regional player and could benefit from the policy that they advocate.
So therefore, what is the likelihood of it becoming a larger conflict, maybe involving Hezbollah, perhaps involving in some shape or form Iran or Syria?
Well, this is in many ways, or in one, can be perceived as a way from engaging Iran. We all witness and all the reports that has been lately produced and reproduced, and the propaganda to put the Iranian situation and the Iranian nuclear file as on the top of the agenda. And there was many speculation that this could occur before the end of Bush administration, and that the Israeli will take a window of opportunity to do it. Instead of attacking Iran, they're attacking Gaza. Now, they are, of course, there is alliance between the people who are trying to resist the American design for the region and the domination, including Iran, Syria, Hamas, or the Palestinian resistance, Lebanese resistance, and others in the region. But those align with the popular movement and uprising that we can see in the streets right now. So to some extent, this is a kind of another attempt by the proxy of United States to try to change the situation in the region. And
therefore, are you suggesting perhaps that Iran and Syria know that now is a good time just to sit back and be quiet because they don't want to provoke the United States, they don't want to provoke Israel?
I think the reaction that now we see from international, not only in the Arab and the Muslim world, it's going to affect even Iran and Syria, the two countries that advocate support for the resistance in the region. I think more instability going to come to probably Egypt and Jordan in particular, and also the fate of the Palestinian Authority and Mahmoud Abbas is in question, what's going to happen to them, and Fatah movement going probably to change completely and have different leadership soon. So I think the criticism is not going to be leveled only to Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia and other who align with Israel and the United States in this conflict. It's going also, if there is no material support from Syria and Iran, more than the support that unknown logistical or kind of moral support that is being giving to them, I think they are going to be subject from their own people.
I'm going to step in here, Mr. Sleiman, and Robert Jordan, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment to ask you about the comments on Saudi Arabia. But Timur Goksel in our Beirut studio, you've worked a lot with people in the south of Lebanon, and you have contacts who would tell you what the political feeling is at the moment. Is there any sense you get that Hezbollah wants to become involved, Hezbollah, and by extension, Iran?
No, no, Hezbollah is not going to get involved. Hezbollah cannot launch a war, initiate a war. Hezbollah can only be in a very good defensive mode. They know this. They will not launch a war. It will be suicidal for their, first of all, for their own Shia community in Lebanon, then for Lebanon as a whole. So they are not going to go into this. It will be suicidal. I mean, the only, we are talking about this conflict spreading. The only power in the Middle East that can initiate a war and sustain it is Israel today. Who else has the power, the military power and the economic power and the political backing to initiate a war in the Middle East today? So we are now, okay, states will not do it. That leaves Hamas and Hezbollah. Hamas is occupied. That leaves Hezbollah. Is Hezbollah going to start a war to change the Middle East, or that's unthinkable? I don't think it will happen.
And actually also Hezbollah, since it became part of the national unity government, is enjoying a relative period of growth, of calm, of using its influence in terms of, you know, social stability in Lebanon. It would not necessarily want to get in a conflict for simply pragmatic and political reasons.
Of course, and also we have elections coming up in Lebanon. Hezbollah is playing big time for these elections. It's very important for them to get a sizable representation in the parliament. An adventure like this, a disastrous one like at that one, it just won't wash. I mean, how can? Also, you are talking about Iran. Yes, Iran has considerable influence on Hezbollah. Yes, Iran has provided weapons to Hezbollah. Do you really think, does anybody really think that Iran is willing to give up that strength, the proxy strength they have here, for a cause which is not really their own? It just doesn't make sense.
Robert Jordan, let me come back to you. Mention was made of Saudi Arabia, where you were ambassador, also of Egypt and of Jordan. What are these countries waiting for?
Well, first of all, I think Saudi Arabia, perhaps more than the other Arab states, has the greatest distrust and perhaps fear of Iran's advancing hegemony in the region. And so I think they are viewing this as potentially a balance of power issue if Hamas can continue to grow in strength. And they see it as at least a temporary opportunity to prune back to some degree Hamas's influence in the region. Egypt and Jordan likely see it the same way. They also, I think, are distrustful of Hezbollah. I certainly agree with the notion that Hezbollah would be making a huge mistake by intervening at this time, particularly given the domestic situation in Lebanon. But Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia very much want to find a solution. I think King Abdullah has also, and this is quite important, has donated several $million in humanitarian aid to the Palestinians in Gaza very recently, as has Crown Prince Sultan. So personally, and they're also raising money through widespread public appeals for humanitarian relief to the Palestinians.
Mr. Ambassador, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about
with the people.
Further diplomatic moves in just a moment, but we're going to take a break now. When we come back, we're going to wonder whether Israel can assume the support of its regional friends will last indefinitely. Do stay with us if you can.